I didn't grow up with much, so when I built a home, I built it with my bare hands and every bit of my heart. And when my son asked for that home like it was a gift he was owed, I realized he didn't just forget the sacrifices, he erased them. There were years when I barely slept. 3 jobs, 1 roof, and a boy who needed everything I could give. That was my life for most of my 30s and 40s. I scrubbed office floors at 6 a.m., worked retail until dusk, and sewed cushion covers at night just to make rent on time. I did it all with one thought. As long as my son makes it, I'll be fine. His name is Ethan, and back then, his smile could melt every bone-deep ache in my body. When his dad died, Ethan was only 12. I remember sitting in the hallway after the funeral, his head on my lap. And I made a promise, to him and to myself, that I would give him a life where he never felt abandoned. College came, and when he lost his scholarship after the 2nd semester, I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I took out the savings I had scraped together for retirement. $80,000, gone in one wire transfer. Then I took a night shift to make up the difference. He finished school. I watched him graduate from the very back row of the auditorium, alone, proud, exhausted. Years later, when he brought Jenna home, polished, polite, sweet like frosted glass, I said yes to everything. Yes, she could stay. Yes, they could save money. Yes, they could use the spare room, the living room, the whole place if they needed. That apartment wasn't just walls and furniture. It was where I nursed his father through chemo, where I cried alone after folding Ethan's baby clothes, where I learned how to unclog a sink by myself and how to smile when I couldn't afford gifts, but made dinner from scratch. I thought, maybe now, maybe with Ethan married and stable, it was finally time for peace, for quiet evenings with tea, for walking barefoot on the balcony. I tiled myself. I never expected the same son I'd raised on blisters and breadcrumbs to look me in the eye and say, "Mom, we think it's time you move out. Jenna's pregnant, but that comes later. For now, I just need you to understand, this home wasn't a gift. It was earned, inch by inch. Sacrifice by sacrifice, and they took it like it was owed to them. It started with a dinner, my 63rd birthday. Nothing fancy. I just wanted Ethan, Jenna, maybe a slice of pie and an early bedtime. But when we sat down, I noticed Jenna's smile had too much sparkle. And Ethan, he looked rehearsed, polished, off. They gave me a gift bag. Inside was a baby onesie. It said, "Best grandma ever." And I smiled, genuinely. Because for a second, I thought it was joy we were sharing. But then came the shift, the performance. Ethan stood up and tapped his wine glass. He cleared his throat and said, "We have some exciting news, not just about the baby, but our living situation." I watched his eyes skim over the table. Jenna's hand was already on her phone, camera angled toward me. "We're moving into Mom's apartment," he announced, grinning like it was his big reveal on a talk show. No one laughed. Everyone clapped. Except me. I blinked. Jenna added, "She's been so generous. We're so grateful she offered to let us start our new chapter in her space." Offer. I never offered. But in that moment, with everyone watching and the camera rolling, I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I froze. Have you ever been so stunned, so embarrassed that your body moves before your brain catches up? You smile, you raise a glass, because if you speak, you'll fall apart. Let me ask you something, and feel free to tell me in the comments. If this has ever happened to you, have you ever been pushed into silence just to keep the peace? Even when your soul screamed, "No!" Because that's what happened to me, right there in that restaurant. Later that night, Jenna pulled out Pinterest boards of neutral nursery tones. Ethan said, "We'll give you a month to move out. No rush." He even had a schedule printed out, with my name on it, like I was being relocated, not asked. They never once asked. They just presented it. And everyone acted like it was already done, like I was a sweet old woman with too much space and no real use for it. That was the night I realized something no mother ever wants to admit. My presence had become inconvenient. And my past, my sacrifices, they were nothing but a footnote to their future. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed for hours, listening to the fridge hum. That old fridge had been with me since Ethan was in middle school. I remembered sticking his spelling tests on it with mismatched magnets, red stars. football logos, little notes he drew when he was bored. Now it held their grocery lists, almond milk, prenatal vitamins, organic cereal. In the morning, Jenna posted a video, a slow pan of my living room set to soft piano music. The caption read, "Goodbye, Grandma's place. Hello to our new chapter." There it was, my couch, my curtains, my bookshelf, already labeled as former, like I had quietly died and left them the keys. 37 comments poured in. Such a generous mom. She must be so proud. She's lucky to have you two. I scrolled until the screen blurred. I didn't remember blinking. Ethan had emailed me a move-out plan, a list of dates, what furniture they wanted to keep, and a link to their Pinterest board, modern, neutral nursery aesthetic. There was even a floor plan mock-up, with my bedroom turned into a baby room and my sewing room marked as future playroom. I hadn't said yes. I hadn't said anything. And yet, the narrative had been decided. That's what hurt the most. Not just that they were taking over, but that my silence had been rewritten as agreement. That somehow, in all their planning, I had become a non-person, a placeholder in a life they were ready to renovate. I opened a drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside were photo albums, old letters. One from Ethan at age 9. "I love you more than pizza and football. Mom." I sat with it in my hands, paper worn soft from time, and I whispered out loud, not even sure who I was talking to. When did I stop being real to him? The truth is, it's not always one big betrayal. Sometimes, it's 1,000 tiny disappearances. They don't scream. You don't matter. They just act like you don't exist. That day, I didn't cry. I did something worse. I started to accept it, but not for long. That afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table, same place I'd sat every morning for the last 3 decades. Only now, it felt like someone else's house. Jenna's pink mug was in the sink, Ethan's gym shoes were by the door, and their baby Pinterest board was still open on my laptop. The one I had bought with my tax refund, thinking maybe I'd finally learned to write that novel. But that dream felt ridiculous now. Because apparently, I wasn't a person with dreams anymore, just a placeholder until the crib arrived. I stared at a blank piece of paper for over an hour, then I wrote something simple at the top. What I've given. I started listing it all. Ethan's college tuition, 80,000. Wedding flowers and catering, 18,000. Emergency loan for their IVF attempt, 12,500. My father's antique dresser, gone. Jenna donated it without asking. My sewing room, cleared out to make space. When I reached the bottom of the list, my hand was shaking. It wasn't just money, it was pieces of myself, chipped away so quietly, I hadn't noticed how little of me was left. I got up, walked to the hall closet, pulled out the box of legal papers I hadn't touched since my husband passed. Deeds, insurance, and tucked in the back, the power of attorney form I'd signed 2 years ago while hospitalized with pneumonia. Ethan's name was on it. I remembered how he'd said, "Just sign so I can help with the hospital bills." "Mom, I've got you." I hadn't read it. I was exhausted. Hooked up to an IV. Now, I was awake. And I didn't have to do anything anymore. I called my lawyer the next morning. Her voice went sharp the moment I mentioned Ethan's name. "You need to come in today," she said. And I did. Pressed slacks, button-up shirt, hair brushed back. I walked into that office not as a mother, not as a victim, but as the owner of her own life. We revoked everything, every power of attorney, every financial access, every right they thought they still held. I walked out holding a new folder, and for the first time in weeks, the weight in my chest began to lift. They had written me out of their future, but I had just written them out of mine. The plan came together faster than I expected, not out of rage, but out of clarity. I didn't announce anything. I didn't confront them. I just moved in silence. My friend Carol, an old neighbor who now worked part-time in real estate, helped me sell the apartment off-market. No listings, no signs. Just word of mouth to a quiet buyer who paid $390 in cash. It took 10 days. While Ethan thought I was watching TV in the bedroom, I was filling out wire transfer forms, while Jenna posted nursery mood boards. I was scanning property listings in small towns they'd never think to look. I found it. A modest, sunlit cottage 2 streets over from the apartment they'd just signed papers to renovate. Yes, next door. They didn't know it yet. And I didn't need them to. Because this wasn't revenge. This was about proximity. Presence. A reminder, not a punishment. I used 95 cents to buy the cottage outright. No debt. No strings. No one else's name on anything. I moved in on a Thursday morning before sunrise. Frank, a friend from church, helped me load the moving van. No questions asked. I took only what mattered. My sewing machine, my husband's photos, the tea set from our 25th anniversary, and a small box labeled proof. Inside, printed emails, Jenna's nursery posts, Ethan's typed transition plan, and a copy of the revoked power of attorney. My new cottage had a window facing directly into their living room. I didn't plan that, but I didn't mind it either. I planted lavender along the porch and hung wind chimes by the back door. I cooked dinner alone, listened to the quiet, watched the sky darken in peace. That weekend, Jenna knocked on the apartment door I no longer own. The new owners didn't answer. She stood outside, confused. Phone in hand, I watched from my kitchen window. Tea in hand. No smile, no wave, just presence. They hadn't noticed I'd left, but they were about to feel it. Not through confrontation, but through the absence of control, because now I was no longer in their house, no longer in their plans. But I was exactly where they didn't expect me to be. Still standing, still watching. Still me? A month passed, no phone call, no knock at the door, but I wasn't expecting one. I'd left behind more than a property. I'd left behind the role they assigned me, the quiet provider. The easy yes, the placeholder. Now, my days looked different. I woke up early to tend the little herb garden out back. Basil, mint, and lavender. I volunteered twice a week at a nearby senior center, helping women like me write emails, scan paperwork, organize their wills. It was quiet work, gentle. But every time someone looked me in the eye and said, "Thank you for helping me feel less invisible," I felt something loosen in my chest. One day, my lawyer called. The new will had been finalized. Ethan and Jenna were no longer beneficiaries. Everything, my savings, my small investments, the cottage, had been placed into a private trust for older women recovering from financial abuse. The name of the fund, the Quiet Hearth, for women who had been left out, used up, or written off, and were done being silent. That night, as I filed the final copy into my drawer, I heard a knock on my door. It was Jenna, lip-glossed, holding a box labeled peace offering. She didn't even look surprised to see me standing there. "We just want to talk," she said. "Maybe clear the air?" I said only one thing. "The air's already clear. It's you who couldn't see through it." Then I shut the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't cry. I made myself tea, sat in my chair, watched the light fade through the trees. And for the first time in years, I felt untouchable. Not because I'd fought for recognition, but because I no longer needed it. Have you ever reached that point where you stop trying to be understood and just start living for you? If that moment ever came to you, I'd love to hear how you handled it, because stories like ours, they matter, even if no one ever says thank you. Especially then, share in the comments if this touched something in you, even just a little. We don't need applause, just each other.